el 10º Encuentro de Profesores de Lenguas del Instituto Politécnico Nacional. A continuación, cedo el uso de la palabra a la licenciada María Nidia Robles Hinojosa, subdirectora académica del Centro de Lenguas Extranjeras, Unidad Santo Tomás.
Buenos días. Good morning, everybody. I am pleased to introduce the plenary conference, Fostering Independence, Building Learner Autonomy. It is my pleasure to introduce Brad Bottenheimer. Hope that's correct. Brad Bottenheimer is originally from Canada, and now he is based in Mexico City. He is an international speaker specializing in oracy, growth, mindset, and special educational needs. He is the co-author of several textbooks for primary, secondary, and young adults, and is currently the senior academic consultant at Cambridge. Brad holds a master's degree in language education, and his dissertation explored the professional development needs of language teachers in relation to inclusive teaching practices for students with special education needs and disabilities. Please give Brad a round of applause.
Good morning. How are you? Good. I just put this on for 3 minutes. I'm going to take it off now. Okay, so if you took a picture with me on it, I'm taking it off. Okay. So I looked fancy for just a second. All right, so I'm happy to be here. I saw very many familiar faces, so it's really great to see some of you again, some of you for the first time. I have some ex-students here that makes me feel old, but it's all good. Isn't that great when you see ex-students who are doing great things in their lives? Not only are you proud, but you do feel, wow, where has the time gone? Because they're doing so well. So today we're talking about learner autonomy and learning to learn. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means and why that's so important as we go along. But first, we need to get ready to learn. So I want everyone to get rid of all their stress. If you were in traffic this morning, I want you to get rid of that. Can you play the video, please? Yes. I want everyone to just relax. Take some deep breaths. Imagine that we are at the beach, the waves, you have a margarita, just one, and you're just sitting there lying. You didn't have to deal with Mexico City traffic to get there. Imagine everything you're going to learn today and what you're going to do with that knowledge. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Okay, if you're falling asleep, wake up and open your eyes. Okay. All right. So I'll tell you what the purpose of that is in a little bit. There was a purpose to that, not just to make you look silly, I promise. Next slide, please. Yes. Okay. So some of you were given some paper when you came into the room, or if you have a piece of paper, I would like you to get it out. If you have a pen or pencil, that's even better. If you have colored pencils because you're one of those teachers, that's even better. And if you have highlighters because you're one of those teachers, that's even better. But if you don't worry. All I want you to do is have the pen and paper ready, and I'm going to tell you what to do. And if you don't have a pen or a pencil, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. I just want to demonstrate something that I want you to try with your students, okay? All right, so the next thing here is I want you to choose one of these. So for the next few minutes, I want you to either A, do a mind map of words of key ideas. So as we go along and we learn different things, I want you to just write key ideas, start in the middle with the thing learning to learn, and then have your umbrellas go out. If you are creative and you love drawing pictures, I want you instead to do a visual map. And I want you to draw pictures of different things or themes that we're talking about over the next 30, 40, 50 minutes. So you choose which one is good for you. Okay? At the end of today, I'll ask if there's anyone that wants to show off. And if not, it's private. Don't worry, I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to come and force you to show it to everyone forward. Okay, so you choose mind map or visual map. All right. This is an activity, and this is part of Learning to Learn. It's about helping students develop strategies. And I'll come back to this. Throughout today's session, I'm going to show you little cards like this. Don't worry if you don't take a picture, because at the end of the session, I'm going to give you a link to download all of the cards for free. Exactly. So don't worry if you don't get these here. But this is one of the important things, and we'll talk about why this is important, is developing your toolbox and helping your students develop their own toolbox as well for their learning and learning to learn, etc. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, and I want to see, you need both hands for this. I know I told you to get your pen and pencil out, but put your hands down, put your pen and pencil down for a second, because I need to see your hands. On a scale of 1 to 10, how autonomous are your students? 1, they need instructions to find your class. Or 10, could teach the class better than I can. So give me a number between 1 and 10. Let's see your hands. Let's see your hands. I see some 8s. I see some 2s. I see some 2s. I see some 5s, some 6s, some 6s, 5s, 6s. Any 10s? No, there was 10 if I add the two of you up. Yeah, okay, very good. Okay, your 5s as well. Okay, this is important to know. This is a good starting point to know where our students are at the moment. How autonomous are they? If you didn't come to the class for a week, what would they do? Some of you said nothing. Yeah? So today we're looking at learning to learn, but there are a whole set of competences here. And at the end, I'm going to give you a link so you can download all this information. But specifically, you can see there's other competencies. We're focusing on learning to learn, but some of them are related, right? For example, critical thinking, collaboration, creativity. Those are all kind of related and things you need to be good at in order to be able to learn to learn. And I'll tell you a little bit of why and how that all relates. Oh, oops, go back. Okay. So what does learning to learn really mean? So just yell out a couple of words. What does learning to learn really mean? Give me some words. What is learning to learn? Acquisition? Okay, what else? Sorry? Strategies, authority, understanding, techniques, self-conscious, emphasis, or empathy, did you say? Yes, empathy. Oh, I love that one. Okay, good. What else? Learning styles, strategies, curiosity. Oh, curiosity. That's a good one as well. Yes? Tools. Perfect. Creativity. Funny. Having fun. Knowing how to have fun. Yeah, for sure. Learning doesn't have to be boring, right? Right? It can be fun, right? Okay. All right, good. Now, the next question is, why is learning to learn important for our students? Think about this. It's 2024. For those of you who are older than 24, think about the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. And some of you maybe the 60s, right? No one here was born in the 60s, right? Everyone was born the 80s and above, yeah? But think about how much society has changed since you were a teenager or since you were a child. Think about, I was born in the 70s, I'm proud to say, but in the 80s and 90s, obviously I didn't have a smartphone. Think about all the jobs that have been created because of the smartphone. Think about all of the jobs that have been created because of the internet. All of these jobs that weren't around when I was a very young person. So think about in 2024, now we are talking a lot about artificial intelligence. We're going to touch on it very briefly today, but that could be an entire other talk. But your students today will have jobs 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, that don't even exist today in 2024. Think about that. You're preparing your students for jobs that don't exist. So your students need to be able to be autonomous. They need to be able to figure out how to solve problems on their own. They need to be able to look for the answers and solutions on their own. Unfortunately, you are not going to go home with them and spend your life with them, helping them for the next 20 years. So they need the skills to be able to do it themselves. So that's why learning to learn is really important. And we're doing our students a disservice if we don't help them with this skill. Think about that. We're not their parents, we're their guide. And this is an important thing to remember. All right, so here, don't worry about reading all of those. I want to focus on the one for learning to learn. So I apologize for this. It looks great on my computer. I don't know what happened when it got over there. But here, learners develop practical skill. This is the umbrella term or the definition that we're going to look at here. Learners develop practical skills to support and take control of their learning and reflect on their own progress. A couple of key things that I want to focus on here. Take control and reflect. I'm going to use the word reflect a lot too, because that's something I love to talk to teachers about, is how great are you at reflecting? How great are you at taking a moment at the end of your class and reflecting? How did it go? What went well? What can I do better? And then taking that skill of reflection and helping our students develop it as well. Education and training needs to focus as much on the skills of learning as on the outputs of learning. Think about that. When you're you could have the perfect student in your class. I was at a spelling bee yesterday. I hate spelling bees, by the way. and I was listening to these kids just who had memorized words, right? Word after word after word. And I was thinking, okay, you're great at memorizing information, but I guarantee you if I sat down, I didn't say this, I was thinking this. I guarantee you if I sat down and had a conversation with you, would you be able to use these words in different contexts, etc., instead of just memorizing them? So are we teaching our students skills to be able to go off into the real world when they run into a situation that they don't maybe know the word, they don't know how to say something, they can figure it out on their own? That's really important. And I love to share the example. When I first came to Mexico, I was in Guadalajara, and this was in 2005. And I knew like, hola, adios, ¿cómo estás? Bien, gracias. That was about it, yeah? And this was before the smartphone. So I had to figure out on my own as I went through day to day how I could communicate. So I had, first of all, I had a physical dictionary. Yeah, exactly. And so with this physical dictionary, before I went into any location, I would look through and pick out the 4 or the 5 or the 6 words that I would need. Then I would go in, I would use those words and my body to try and get my message across. That was a skill that I developed. My output wasn't so great, but my skill was pretty good, right? Because I was able to solve the problem and figure it out, etc. Right? Those are the kinds of things that we need to teach our students. Oh, stay there. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, reflect. And I want you to do this with the person sitting next to you. If you haven't met them, say hello. Say, hey, great to see you. Yeah, great, okay. And I want you to answer these questions here. So first of all, we're going to start on the first one, my role as a teacher. My role as a teacher is to. Turn and tell the person next to you. My role as a teacher is to. Okay, now go to the next one. My student's role is to. My student's role is to. Okay, oh, you've already finished both? Okay, okay. You're one of those students. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's hear some of your answers. So just yell out calmly. When I say the word yell, I don't mean like yell with aggression. Yell out softly and cute, yeah? My role as a teacher is to... To be successful in communicating. I love it. Okay, I heard something over here. Monitor, yes, yes. To give confidence, yes, I heard something back here. Inspire, yes. Motivate, yeah. Guide, yes. Support, yes. To be realistic, that's good. Okay, yeah, okay, good. Perfect, yes. Okay, what about student? My student's role is to... acquire those tools to be successful in communication. Okay, yes, okay. What more? Be responsible for their own learning. Yes, okay. Train myself to be a multitasker. Yes, okay. Observe. Sorry? Oh, sorry. To embrace challenges? Yes, okay, good. Yes, perfect. Good. We could go on for a day, right? So this is important. But what I love is I heard lots of, for the teacher, monitor, guide, motivate, etc. This is good. We're on the right track, right? And our students take responsibility. That's an important one that someone said going on, right? Okay, obviously easier said than done. Easier said than done. Here's a quote from Sarah Cotterill. The central concern is decision-making in the learning process, which both implies a change in role for learner and teacher, and raises questions about the willingness and ability of the learner and teacher to assume their new roles. I want to go back to 2020. A couple of things happened that year. I don't know if you remember. And 2020 and also 2021, those two particular years. And I spoke to many, because everything was online, so I spoke to many more teachers than I always speak to many teachers, but this was amplified because of the online issue. And I spoke to many teachers over that time. And I would hear time and time again from teachers all over the country and Central America and South America, all different parts, how they were amazed at the things that their students were able to accomplish at home alone. I heard that time and time and time again. And I had multiple conversations with multiple teachers about, wow, this is impressive that when they're given their own device and we're not mothering them or we're not there to hold their hand, they're able to do it. It's pretty impressive. And then I remember having the same conversation. Wouldn't it be great when they come back to the classroom if they can continue this autonomous learning? And now that we're back in the classroom, I'm still seeing a lot of teachers and students fall into those old habits, right? Because they expect maybe the teacher to solve the problem for them, or the teacher jumps in when maybe if they just waited, the student would have solved the problem on their own. I bring that up because I think it's an important reflection to have, is in one of the biggest crises we've had in our teaching history, many, not all, right? This is key because there were many exceptions to the rule, but many of our students were able to figure it out, right? Many of our students, and you too, right? Some of you probably thought, how am I going to make it through the next 2 weeks of class, let alone the next year of class? Because remember, when it started, it was only going to be 2 weeks. And then you know what happened, right? You were there with me, yeah? So let's look at more specifically this competence learning to learn. So there's 3 different areas I want to show you. So the first one here on the left, developing skills and strategies for learning. And here, this information again is in the brochures I'm going to give you at the very end in the QR code. So you don't have to take a picture of everything. But I know some of you are being really good students and doing the mind map or the visualization, right? Yeah, because you're great students, okay? So developing skills and strategies includes important techniques such as taking notes, okay? Storing and retrieving information, as well as techniques for learning and remembering information. That's what you're doing right now, right? You're coming up with your own technique, and we'll talk about that. In an ELT context, learners also benefit from using strategies to help them understand and communicate in English. There are various methods for engaging, and learners need to experiment and choose the one which best suits their own personal style. So I'll just show you an example here. Okay. So here, this is an example at the top here of of a mind map, but then students also taking the moment to classify the different words in the theme. This is something they would probably do at the end of the lesson. They would start with their mind map. Then at the end of the lesson, they would kind of classify it into different categories. All right, this is part of the developing skills and strategies. So here, organizational tools, and this is what I'm getting you to do right now. Learners can organize their thoughts and ideas through the use of mind maps and other organizational tools. For example, these could be used for brainstorming, taking notes, while reading or listening. You're listening, you're doing it right now. Subsequent discussions about the topic or theme, and organizing ideas. But it's really important. At the beginning of the session today, what did I do? Did I force you to do one of them? No, what did I do? I gave you options. Because what works for me doesn't work for you. What works for you doesn't work for them, etc., and so forth and so forth. Always give them options. They need to find what works for them. And just like, for example, when I used to teach certification courses or preparation courses, I would always give my students a list of possibilities, strategies, and I say, now let's find the one that works for you, because not every strategy works for every single person. Next one, taking control of own learning. So here, implies developing self-regulatory strategies, becoming autonomous, maintaining motivation, and staying focused on the task at hand in order to achieve the best results. To accomplish this, learners need to be clear about their learning goals. Okay, so there's a couple of things here. First and foremost is implies developing self-regulatory strategies, becoming autonomous. And I'm going to show you an example of that here. Let's go this one. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Okay. And this is an example. So flip to roles, for example, is something you can do. Oh, what did I do? Hold on. Oops. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. This is an example. This is one of many things you can do. So here, for example, flip roles, get students to work in groups and imagine they are the teachers. Allow them to think of strategies to help their students accomplish their learning objectives. I'll tell you a story, another story. I love my stories. How many people here have worked at the Anglo? Okay, yes, okay, so, I remember whoever taught those Saturday classes, the 9 to 2 classes, they still have those 9 to 2 classes? No, yes? You're saying no. Do they have, oh, you don't know. The 9 to 2 classes on Saturdays were painful for me and for them, right? And I was always imagining, could you imagine working all week or studying all week and then waking up early on a Saturday to come to English class from 9 to 2? Oh my Lord. So I used to think, how can I, and especially, they would give me the C1 level, and I can't even remember what book it was. And I mean, it wasn't the most exciting of topics, right? So I somehow had to try to add some enthusiasm into those 6 hours. So I would do this a lot. What I would do is I would go ahead and I would look at certain pages of the unit, and I would choose the ones that I thought could be followed into this, where they could be the teacher. And so I would put them into little groups, and I'd say, okay, you're group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're going to worry about this page. You're worrying about this page, this page, this page, this page. And then what I'd get the students to do is they would create the lesson for that page, but I would give them time. It would be a project we would work at over a couple of weeks. And I would usually give them some parameters, like you have to use, it was 2000, it was in the early 2010s, 2015, I think. And so you would have to use some type of social media. You would have to have an interactive activity. You would have to have question and answer, those kinds of things. And they, 9 times out of 10, would come up with these amazing and creative ideas that I have gone on to teach other teachers. And I always give them credit when I show one of their ideas, because they can come up with some amazing stuff if we let them take control. And again, this is not going to help with every single topic, but it will help with many topics. I guarantee you, give a little bit of control. Give a little bit of control with them. It really helps. Yeah? And then here, reflecting on and evaluating on learning. So before I look at this one, I want to ask you as teachers, on a scale of 1 to 10, how great are you at reflecting? Hold up your hands. How great are you at reflecting? Okay, yes? Okay, I got some 9s there, yeah? Okay. I got some 2s, 3s, okay. Again, good. If we are going to expect our students to reflect, we also need to reflect. You know, I spend a lot of time doing observations, and my question at the end of the observation is, tell me what you think went well. And then usually they're great at answering that question. And then when I say, what would you like to change? Or what would you like to get better at, et cetera, that's a lot of the times where they struggle with, right? With those kinds of things. Or vice versa. It also depends on the experience of the teacher. I've seen both sides of the coin. But you yourself need to always constantly be working and massaging that skill of being able to reflect. Because being able to reflect, you're able to identify key areas of opportunity, and then you are able to act on those key areas of opportunity, which is a critical part of learning to learn. And if we can do it well, then we can pass that on to our students, which is a really, and if you're teaching, whether it's young adults, teenagers, or primary school students, you need to start young. Even in kinder, we start helping them learn to reflect, and then into primary, then into teenagers, then into young adults, etc. So here, reflecting and evaluating involves learners reflecting on their own learning in order to assess what worked for them and what did not. Really important. This reflection can inform decision regarding whether to persevere with certain courses of action or to make changes. As a result, learners are able to identify and use effective learning techniques and strategies. So for example, some of the things I was mentioning, you know, if I'm preparing for certification, for example, and I'm good at reflecting, I'm able to identify my areas of opportunity and then know where to look and to find that information. So here's an example: developing metacognition through discussion. Engage learners in discussion regarding which tool is best suited to a given activity. So in that time, they're able to make the decision independently. So here's just an example. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay. So here's an example of the kind of questions or the kind of action plan you can get your students to do. And these are, again, depending upon the situation, depending upon the students, depending on the subject. An action plan could involve, you know, students saying, what do I want to do? How much time do I have? How am I going to do it? How often am I going to do the things in 3? And what's my goal in 1 sentence, right? So having students come up with regular action plans. One thing I'm going to tell you is I talk about this in another talk, but I'll just mention it briefly, is when students are setting goals, and when you're setting goals as well, we're really great at setting goals. Then as soon as something happens, we forget about it. Right, and you think about every New Year's we make what? Resolutions. And then what happens by February? We drop it, okay? The reason we drop it is because we don't plan for things getting in our way. So part of a really good action plan is planning for the things that get in our way. And a great example of that is, let's say, for example, I decided, you know what? This year, I'm gonna lose 4 kilos. And then January 15th comes along, and it's my friend's birthday. And at the birthday, they have this really good cake. And I'm like, okay, well, just tonight. And then the next week, it's my cousin's wedding. Well, obviously, we can't be rude. We have to eat everything that they have, etc., right? So in those cases, I didn't plan for. I didn't have a backup plan, right? So what are the different plans? And then I gave up and went on, etc. Right? So when you're helping students come up with action plans, because a lot of times you'll say to your students, okay, so what are you going to do? And they're like, I'm gonna watch more English TV. Great. If that was a solution, we wouldn't need English classes. Right? So what are you going to do with the English TV? Right? What are you going to do when students say, I'm going to watch more Netflix? And I'm like, okay, well, are you using subtitles or not? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, so at the end of the show or whatever, I want you to write a summary of what you watched. I want you to write keywords while you're watching. I want you to do some type of task while you're watching. Because if not, again, this is over. I mean, how many times have you all heard your students say, I'm going to listen to music, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that? Great. That's a great tool to add, but it's not the end-all be-all, because if it was, they wouldn't be in your class, right? So have them do something, challenge them to do something with it as well. And if they're making an action plan like this, what happens when there's an obstacle? What could stop you? And when it appears, what are you going to do to go around that obstacle, right? What's your plan B? Content pages. This is also, again, this card is in the pack at the very end here. Something you can also, keeping track of progress at the start of a course, ensure that learners are familiar with the content pages of their coursebook. At regular intervals throughout the course, encourage them to look back at the content pages and tick or highlight the language and skills they feel confident about using. This is important. I'm going to show you, is it this one? Hold on. Yeah. It's related to this also. Be honest. Don't answer out loud. Answer inside your head. Okay. How many of you tell your students what the objective of the class is? Okay. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Okay. Good if you do. And how many of you don't? And don't tell me. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. And I want you to reflect on why you do or why you don't. And I want to give you an example. Let's imagine right now I said to all of you, "All right, everyone, come with me." What would you say? Why or where, right? Where are we going? The same in your class. You're taking your students on a journey. They need to know where they're going, right? It's really, really important. Your students need to know where they're going. And then when you get there at the end of the class, you can say, okay, so today the objective or the goal was blah, 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 blah. Did we arrive there or not? Okay, we didn't arrive. We took a couple detours. Tomorrow we'll get back on track and we'll go back. This makes a huge difference in your students knowing where they're going, because this helps them develop their strategies as well as they're going along, because they'll start to realize when they achieve that. Now, what sometimes happens, and then also in the books, whatever books you're using, I mean, every book nowadays has at the top opening pages what the objectives are or what's going on in the unit, etc. It literally takes you 3 minutes to have that conversation with your students. And then the previous slide was the content pages, and then checking in with your students throughout the unit. Okay, we're working towards this by the end of the unit. Where are we? Right? And then you have your daily goals, etc. So if you don't do this every day, try to include, well, don't try, do. Don't try, do. Include this. This should be the first thing you do every single day when you walk into the classroom. Because what also sometimes happens, and I know every single one of you are at home on Saturday evenings planning your classes. And so I know that on Monday morning when you go into your classroom, you know everything that's going to happen. You never, ever are last minute. Never. So you are walking into your classroom and you're proving to your students that you planned your class, right? Just at least something on the board to show that you at least opened the book before the class. That really helps them a lot, right? So keep that in mind with showing students knowing their goals. Oh no, we have a problem. This is not set up. It's just, they just called me. The electricity is going out in 15 minutes. What should we do? Discuss a solution with the person next to you. Okay. All right, so what's our solution? The electricity is going on in 15 minutes. What do we do? Asking and answering questions, okay. What else? Games, okay. Okay, yes, okay, good. What else? Okay, okay, yes. What else? Taking photos? Okay, okay, okay. Okay. Only some of you are finishing the conference. The rest of you are having entertainments, no? Yeah. To sing, okay. More entertainment, okay. What else? Go outside? Yes, go outside. Okay. All right, yeah. Working pairs, practice vocabulary. Okay, okay, yeah, okay. Well, but how are we going to finish the presentation? Question and answers, yes. Reflection and answers, yes, yeah. Any other ideas in the back? Yeah? Okay. Share the mind maps. There you go. Okay, yeah, good. Okay, I love it. Okay, all right. And, okay, good. Well, good news. Good news. We're not really losing the electricity. Whew, I know many of you were worried, right? Yeah. Well, there you go. This is an activity. From the activity cards that you're going to get called Oh No. It's great that literally, this is actually from a young learner's activity, but you can adapt this for any age, right? You can do the same and change the scenario. You can literally, in the middle of your class, without warning, come up with something that needs to be solved. Right? An oh no, right? But make it realistic. Like, oh no, something is going to happen. What should we do? And have them come up with a solution. What competencies are we working on? Obviously, you collaborated, but what else? Critical thinking. What else? Brainstorming. Yes. Agreeing, disagreeing. Yeah. Which all is connected to learning to learn, right? Because you had to take control of the situation and come up with a solution. So great, I challenge you to use this activity. Just literally without warning in the middle of your class, do and come up with your own solution. Make it based upon your particular context. Oh no. Okay, there we go. Okay, all right. So I'm just gonna go back into those 3 different categories, but just go a little bit deeper. And again, this is on you're going to get this information at the end. But as you can see here, developing skills and strategies kind of go into 4 different areas. Engaging in directed activities, using effective systems for finding, keeping, and retrieving information, using effective strategies for learning and retaining information, and using effective strategies for comprehension and production. So I'll give you another example here. Okay, here we go. Who likes to use flashcards in their classrooms? Perfect, yeah. How many of you encourage your students to make their own flashcards? Good, okay. If you don't, do it. Quizlet is a great tool where students can create their own flashcards. The great thing about flashcards on Quizlet is you can assign your students different sets of words, and they make their own sets of flashcards, and then they can share with different groups. So you're doing tons of different learning skills here as well. You're collaborating, you're sharing, you're working in teams, you're using creativity, and you're learning to learn. That's a great one, right? So flashcards. Another one? Teachers, how many of you are great at organizing a notebook? Okay. Okay, all right. How many of you are like me and terrible? Okay, good, okay. If you looked at any time I have to write on a piece of paper, I always have good intentions. I start off with a great intention of making something beautiful, but by the end, it's just a mess of random things, etc., right? But you know what? Nobody taught me this in school. Right, I just was on my own, and I was always kind of a wild child, but I feel like if one of my teachers would have taken the time to show me different skills and strategies on how to organize my notebook. I work with, her name is Mariana, she's one of my colleagues. I swear she is the best notebook organizer I have ever seen in my life. I am amazed. Like, I cry when I see her notebook. It's just, that's beautiful. So if you're good at it, I really recommend that you help your students develop that strategy, because it can be very, very effective, right? Now, again, you might say, well, why do we need that? Because we have our computers, etc. You never know what can happen. I mean, what works for one person doesn't work for another, and you don't always have access to that. I know that from personal experience, something that happened recently to me, not having access to my information on my computer. And my colleague, Mariana, had all of her information, and I didn't have my information because it was all there. So this is also a great thing for learning to learn. Hello? Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay. Another one, another activity. Don't say this. Using effective strategies for comprehension and production. So while learners are carrying, while learners are carrying out a speaking task, write 3 to 5 words related to the topic on the board. After learners have completed the task, ask them to repeat the task, but this time without saying any of the words listed on the board. So this is a great task for helping them look at the very top there, developing skills and strategies for learning. So you've already done the task. Then you're going back to repeat the task, but you've included words now that they can't use in the second time of the task. So not only are we recycling the task, but this is a great way of challenging them. Again, this card is in the cards I'm going to give you at the end, so don't worry if you don't get it. Okay? So developing strategies, you need to remember. Oh, there we go. Okay. Strategies are personal. This is probably the most important thing. Every strategy that we talk about is not going to work for everybody. So just like I did with you at the beginning, you need to help your students find their own strategy that works for them. Help them with a list, like give them ideas, but then help them choose which ones works for them. Have them try it at least once. And then if it doesn't work, okay, let's move on to the next one. Check in on strategies to raise the chances of making them habits. How many of you are in the mind map or visual representation right now? How many of you have totally forgot about the mind map or visual representation? Okay, a few of you, yeah? See, I didn't check in on them. It's my fault. I take responsibility for you not doing it, yeah? Okay, and? Okay. Make time for learners to share their own learning tips. Peer teaching often has more impact. I used to especially do this when I was doing preparation courses for certifications. I would have every week, we would sit down and say, okay, let's talk about the activities we did today. What strategies worked for you? And then the students would really start to learn from each other. This is, again, those are some of the greatest lessons I've ever had is from students. I don't know everything. My students know a lot more. And especially when you add up all students together, they know more than me. That's important to keep in mind. We're not the all-knower of information. Okay, perfect. And then taking control of learning. So here we look at a few different things. So setting goals and planning for learning. We talked a little bit about goals and why some of those goals fail. Takes initiative to improve own learning. Managing the learning environment, managing attitudes and emotions. So first and foremost here, so obviously nowadays, something that really affects many of our students, and us as well, is anxiety, right? So so much stuff is happening in our lives, noises and social media and things and traffic to get here, etc. Sometimes we come into the classroom, we're just not ready. So at the very beginning today, I did the little music and I had you all relax and imagine you're at the beach, etc. That was my way of getting you. Another thing you can do here is, oh, what happened? Okay, oh, no, what happened now? Okay, there we go. Another thing you can do is this, which is grounding. And you can actually search, if you search in Google or online, you can find many different ways of doing what we're seeing here. And so we're going to just do a practice one here, okay? And again, you can find different ways of doing this in YouTube and music, et cetera, et cetera. So I want everyone to put everything in your hands down, okay? Okay. So it says here, ask the person to place their feet solidly on the ground and sense the support from floor or ground. So make sure your feet are on the ground. If sitting on a chair, feet on the floor, tensing the leg muscles by stemming the feet against the floor as if wanting to push the chair back, okay? So everyone is there. Okay, there we go. Now, I'm going to give you a number of different tasks. They're very easy. And don't speak. Acknowledge 5 things you see around you. It could be a pen, a spot on the ceiling, anything in your surroundings. Acknowledge 4 things you can touch around you. It could be your hair or the ground under your feet. Acknowledge 3 things you hear. For example, birds singing, a clock ticking, or the sound of a car in the distance. Acknowledge 2 things you can smell. For example, the smell of a drink, soap in your bathroom, or smells of nature outside. Acknowledge 1 thing you can taste. What does the inside of your mouth taste like? Can you taste food you ate earlier or something you're eating now? Okay, and come back to reality. Okay, so this is a great, just kind of centering your students or helping them center themselves. This is a technique you can find, like literally, if you Google this, or if you put this into YouTube, there's literally hundreds of videos. It's called grounding. So just look for that. Oops, oh, sorry, better than, yeah. Oops. There we go, let's go back. Yeah, just look for that, grounding. If you look grounding, go into YouTube or go into Google. And there's ones with videos, there's ones with music, etc. And it's a great way just helping your students. Because if your students are anxious, are they going to be at their best selves for learning? No, right? We need to help our students get to that state, right? Which is important. Oops, let me go here. There we go. Okay, so managing the environment. So encourage learners too. So first of all, if they're at home first, and then we'll talk about your classrooms. If they're at home, I encourage learners to open a window, adjust the noise or temperature if they can, tell family they're studying, put mobile devices elsewhere. That's the big one. Change positions regularly, stay hydrated, take shoes off. Now in the classrooms, I know we all work in different institutions and we have different environments, etc. The key is do what you can, right? I mean, but take as much responsibility as you can within so many reasons, because obviously you can't change the actual physical structure. But if a light is off or a light is going off, you can walk down, hopefully, to someone in the school and say, we need to change this. Or you can try and make the environment as safe as possible. Or you can try to make that there's no obstructions, etc. Whatever you can do. So instead of focusing on the can'ts, focus on the cans, right, which is an important part. But the environment is important, right? Set the learning stage for the environment. Hello? Okay. And then finally, reflecting on and evaluating your own learning. So here, keeping track of progress, evaluating learning and progress, and using feedback to improve learning. So what's also important is, and you can do this in a variety of different ways, I love to give exit tickets at the end of the week, but with reflective questions. So you can use for questions like this here. So today in this unit I've learned, you can put this on an exit ticket. I've also learned how to, I'm getting better at, I still need to practice, therefore I'm going to, something else I can do to learn this is. What I also love sometimes on an exit ticket, you can ask questions like, this week blank was difficult, but I blank to overcome it. And that also helps students build resilience and start to learn that when things aren't always perfect, that they can develop their strategies to be able to do it. But this has to be a regular thing. And you have to challenge students to put real answers and not just put stuff. And I'll talk about that in a second, about the stuff that they sometimes put. Benefits of self and peer assessment. So first of all, we talk about this all the time. But it's important that we do it correctly, because what sometimes happens when we do self or peer assessment, it's just going through the motions and checking boxes. And that is just a waste of your time and a waste of their time. So if done correctly, the benefits are, encourages learners to reflect on their progress, helps learners understand what is expected, helps learners to take responsibility for their learning, because if they're starting to self-evaluate, because if you as a teacher are great at reflecting, and then you as a teacher have passed that skill on to your students, then they will learn that self-assessment and peer assessment will help them take responsibility for their learning. And enables learners to get more feedback, obviously, because you can't be with your student all the time. You can't do everything, right? You're super people, but you don't have 25 arms, right? This is important, so you need to encourage them to help you. And so let me go back here. Okay, yes, that's good. Okay, so I'm going to just very quickly show an example here. So in this particular one here, the lesson was, by the end of the lesson, students will have written a postcard to a friend using present tenses. For example, we out every day, I'm staying at a hotel. So here we have a communicative context, a language structure, and an example. So let's say that was the objective. So then we go into the class. Okay, so here is the activity. You're on a holiday, and so here's the postcard. They have to say where they are, say what the weather's like, say what they do, say how long they're staying. So these are the instructions here. Then this was the self-assessment checklist. Now, a couple things I want to point out here. So first, obviously, I've showed this to my students before they do the activity. You can't surprise them after. Like, surprise, here you go. Did you do it? Oh, I caught you. Catch your students doing something right instead of catching your students doing something wrong. You need to change that mentality, right? We want to find them doing right. Find them doing right. So here, I wrote about where I am, okay, etc. I wrote about the weather, da 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 da. So here's based upon, remember what our objective was for the class. But the big one is this right here. Challenge students to give you examples for each answer. Because what happened, this is where the breakdown is sometimes, when we have just these checklists with yes or no. Our students look at the watch and they're like, oh, class is over in 3 minutes, okay? And I'm gonna go check, check, check. Done, teacher. And then you walk in this here, you have to walk over them and say, okay, great, I see you said yes, but give me an example. What did you do to do this? What did you do to do this? Give me an example of what you did to do this. So this checklist is okay, but I would include another section on below that prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it. Because them just checking random boxes is wasting your, you're just wasting space. Because 90% of your students will just check yes or no. The other 10% who are really taking responsibility for their learning, fabulous. But the other percent, maybe the number's a little high. Let's say 70-30, 60-40. Let's do that, yeah? So we want to give those 60% of students who are just going to check, 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 and what we're going to do to help them with that. Okay, preparing checklists. Let's see if you can give me the answers. Criteria should be according to, okay, let's see. Relevant, close enough, yeah, okay. They should be presented in a logical, oh, good job, okay. Okay, they should be, yeah, exactly. We're not sending students to the moon. Make it easy for them to understand. Because if it becomes frustrating for them, then they just like, teacher, I don't care, right? That's really important. And then there should not be too many. Yeah. The biggest mistake we can make and as teachers is to over-mark. And that includes not only for us as marking if we're giving feedback, but also when we're setting up checklists like this and rubrics, right? So for peer and self-assessment. Because if it becomes too many, your lesson gets lost and your objective gets lost, right? And that's really, really important to keep in mind, right? Okay, do you want free? Yeah, there you go. So first of all, you can take a screenshot here, or you can take the picture of the QR code, or take a picture and you'll have the the link after. And when you're done that, I have one final question for you. And here in this link, you'll see two things. You'll see, if you remember at the very beginning of the presentation, I showed you a photo with brochures of all the different competencies. You'll find those there as well. And in those brochures, you will find can-do statements for every one of the competencies, including learning to learn. But you'll find can-do statements depending upon the age group you're teaching. So if you're teaching young adults, you find those. But if any of you are teaching, for example, young learners, we also have can-do statements for young learners. And we also have can-do statements for kinder teachers as well. So whatever age group you find yourself teaching, we have a can-do statement for that. So you know, okay, in higher education, my students should be able to do blah, blah, blah in learning to learn. In higher education, my students should be, in primary, my students should be able to do blah, blah, blah in learning to learn, etc. Okay, I'm going to go to the final slide if you got it. Perfect. Yes. Okay. If at all you miss it, go to the Cambridge stand after and they can give it to you, yeah? Okay, so the final thing that I want all of you to do is this question here. What am I doing today? Not today, but in your class. Okay, so when you're teaching, right? So every single day while you're walking to your class and you have your coffee in your hand, and obviously you're walking slowly because you're early, right? Okay, you're walking slowly. And I want you to ask yourself, what am I doing today to challenge my students to become more autonomous? Ask yourself that question every single day. And remember, we're preparing our students for a world that's going to be drastic. This is not an exaggeration. The world will be drastically different in 10 years. Probably bigger changes than we've ever seen in our lifetime in the next 10 years. So help set your students up for success instead of setting them up for a world of just waiting for someone to come along and give them the answers. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brad. It was very interesting, very enjoyable. This is a token of our appreciation in the name of the Dirección de Lenguas Extranjeras and Licenciada Silvia Blanco. It's for you. I hope you like it. Thank you very much. Yes, of course. Yes, okay. It's outside part. Thank you in your favorite color, of course.
Thank you very much. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Okay. And recognition also for you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Muchas gracias a todos. Los invitamos a que continúen con las ponencias. En 10 minutos ya están en los salones. Gracias. Bonito día a todos.